It sounds like Max Verstappen is going to take a 10-place grid penalty at the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa, but are we going to bring him into our F1 fantasy teams as a result? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Thursday, July 25th. My name is Ewan. On today's episode, we're going to get into a Belgian Grand Prix preview and some much-needed team selection before the last race, before the F1 summer break. So make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel. That way you don't miss any of the content that has come out this week or that is coming out over the summer break. This is the fourth episode this week. I did a Hungarian Grand Prix preview. I did early team selection, green flag, yellow flag, red flag, and then today is the big preview kind of team selection thing. So let me know in the comments below if you have enjoyed the kind of extra episodes this week, considering we are in the middle of a double header. Any likes and comments are always appreciated, and I always try to get back to you guys. So hopefully you are enjoying the content coming out of the channel. But let's check it out here. Belgian Grand Prix preview. Circuit de Spa-Francorchamos. I just watched a YouTube video on how to pronounce that, so hopefully I did it right. 7.004 kilometers, the longest track on the F1 circuit, 19 corners, 2 DRS zones, and the first Grand Prix here was in 1950. If Max Verstappen is going to take the 10-place grid penalty, which has not been confirmed by the FIA or by Red Bull yet, but it sounds like it. Rumors are flying around that is going to happen. It'll be the third year in a row that Max has taken a grid place penalty at Spa. So it must suit the Red Bull. He must like the track. It's going to be a talking point that we're going to get into in a little bit here in the episode. But the tire compounds for the Belgian Grand Prix, C2, C3, C4, so kind of like right in the middle there. We'll see. It's supposed to be an interesting weather weekend. Like we see here, Friday is supposed to be raining during Q2, so that will affect our qualifying data, potentially some long run data. Saturday is supposed to be heavy showers pretty much all day. Qualifying is set to be a wet one, which we're going to get into as well later in the episode. If you don't have time to watch everything in the episode, the timestamps are in the description below to help you out, so you can jump below and just kind of watch which kind of content you would like to select. And then on Sunday, it's supposed to be a dry race. 21 degrees Celsius, 1% chance of precipitation. So it'll be a wet Friday, a wet Saturday, but then a dry Sunday. So we'll have to see how the teams set up for that when it comes to qualifying and then what happens on Sunday. As for last year's edition of the 2023 Belgian Grand Prix, Max finished on pole, but then he took a 5-place grid penalty. So he started 6th, still won the race quite comfortably. Sergio Perez came 2nd, Charles Leclerc came 3rd. Fernando Alonso jumped up from 9th to 5th on qualifying. And if you watch my green flag, yellow flag, red flag episode earlier this week, you'll know that I gave him the red flag as a sell. And that's mostly due to he's not really performing well. He's been outscored by Lance Stroll in F1 Fantasy over the last 7 races. And the Aston Martin car is just not that good this year. It was off to a flyer in 2023. And Fernando was kind of like reaching the end of that streak when it got to the Belgian Grand Prix. But it has not continued. They have not picked up where they left off in 2023, and it's been a pretty bit of a disaster season. Wondering if Fernando Alonso is slightly regretting going early with his extension to Aston Martin. When we talk about the weather, though, this is kind of where we're getting to the preview part of the episode. It's like rain. So this here is all 20 drivers. I calculated their dry qualifying average position, their wet qualifying average position, and the difference. So the difference, if it's a positive difference, that means that they have been qualifying better in the wet than in the dry. So Logan Sargent leads all drivers. In the dry, he's at 18.9, but in the wet, 13th is where he qualifies. So lots of Q2 appearances, 5.9 positions of difference there. So good job by Captain America there, Lance Stroll, which kind of living up to the stereotype there. We always kind of say that Lance Stroll does better in qualifying, and here are the numbers to back that up. So 12.8 in dry qualifying, 8.3 in wet qualifying. Just for reference here, the races that I counted as a wet qualifying were Canada, Silverstone, and Hungary. So Hungary is a little, iffy there. I understand that, but people were affected by the conditions. And I don't think I missed anything. Let me know in the comments below if I missed something. So apologies for that. But based on that data, these numbers are accurate. I didn't include sprint qualifying in China because it was sprint qualifying, and I'm pretty sure the qualifying on that Saturday was dry when it happened. Daniel Ricciardo is third here, 4.1 difference between his dry qualifying and wet qualifying. Lewis Hamilton, Alexander Albon, Fernando Alonso. You can see it all here. If you listen to the podcast side, the top three are Sargent, Stroll, and Ricardo, but you should flip over to the YouTube side so you can see all of this content here. We start to get into kind of not that big of a difference. Oscar Piastri, 5.7, wet qualifying, 3.7. But let's get into the bottom 10 here. And I've got a couple of stars next to some of the drivers here. So George Russell is at 5.9 for dry qualifying and 6.3 for wet qualifying. However, he had 2 poles in the wet qualifying, and he just had a 17th last weekend in Hungary because of not putting enough fuel in the car. He said he didn't take his first run in Q1 all that seriously. So he gets a little bit of like an asterisk there. He'd probably be way up these charts if he had even like finished third or fourth in the wet qualifying. And then Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc have stars next to their name because all of the wet qualifyings have really come since Ferrari's struggles have happened since Monaco, like Canada, like these high-speed tracks. Ferrari has just kind of, the update has not been working. So while the results are worse, we kind of got to take that with a pinch of salt because they have has also coincided with the bad update on the car for Ferrari. However, that update is still going to be on the car this weekend. They're not going to make any major changes in Spa. So these kind of numbers will still apply. But George Russell especially gets the kind of like little asterisk there. Like he's like qualified on pole in 2 of the 3 races are qualifying in the wet. So we should expect him to do quite well. And he'll be a major player in our team selection this week. Max Verstappen here, dry quali 1.6, wet qualifying 3.0, minus 1.4. I mean, he started the year with 7 straight poles. So, yeah, while Red Bull has struggled and the other cars have come on, of course, that's going to look a little different. But the worst 3 here, well, really the worst 4, because I want to talk about those 2 as well. Sergio Perez here, 6.4 in the dry qualifying, 17.0 in the wet qualifying, negative 10.6 places when it comes to getting some moisture on the track. Charles Leclerc here, 4.1, 9.2, minus 5.2. And then the Alpine boys here, who are going to be wearing the Deadpool versus Wolverine outfit here, and just a little bit of a little rant outside of F1 Fantasy here. It looks absolutely awful to me. I'm not a fan. That is just a total sellout. I understand Ryan Reynolds has a stake in the team and stuff like that, but it's just like, is that where we're heading in F1? Because I mean, first of all, like that's like a dangerous hill and a path to kind of go down there, but also it just looks awful. Like it looks terrible. I'm not looking forward to looking at that car in free practice and qualifying it in the race on Sunday. But hopefully we won't need to because they will be at the back of the pack. So Esteban Ocon qualifies 13.4 in dry quali, 18.3 in wet quali, and Gasly 14.4 in dry quali, and also 18.3 in wet qualifying here. So Ocon falls down 4.9 places, and Gasly falls down 3.9 places in wet qualifying. But hopefully that terrible livery stays off our screens. I do not want to look at it. But yeah, Sergio Perez, the bad form is probably going to continue there. But George Russell, while the numbers say one thing, with the context, if you watch the races and stuff, like he will still be a major player in our F1 fantasy lineups this weekend. Max Verstappen here talking about the potential grid penalty here. So RBR Daily, Autosport, nothing official yet. Autosport pretty trustworthy here. Max Verstappen is set for a 10-place grid penalty at this weekend's Belgian Grand Prix for exceeding his engine allowance. Still no firm confirmation from the FIA or whatever. That probably won't come until tomorrow or maybe even Saturday. I guess we'll find out. But it is going to happen. So we kind of need to think about, is Max Verstappen going to be like flying around Spa? Because a couple of years ago, he scored about 76 points in F1 Fantasy, starting from like way back in the field, and then just stormed to a win. So what I've done here is I've kind of gone through like a couple of scenarios, and just added up all of the points. So like the low end and the high end. of what we should expect Max Verstappen to do this weekend at Spa-Francorchamos, which I wanted to try and pronounce a second time because I watched that video. I hope I nailed it. Let me know if it sounded all right. So qualifying, I have low as 8 points, high as 10 points, aka he's going to qualify first or third. So I don't think he's going to be outside the top 3 in qualifying this weekend. In the race, I'm expecting him to still finish third or first, just depending on how powerful that Red Bull car is actually going to be and what the data kind of is. Overtakes between 8 to 12, because if he's taking a 10-place grid penalty, but he starts first, second, third, then he's going to be somewhere up there. The overtakes don't match the positions gained because sometimes you can overtake someone in the pits, sometimes like someone will crash, like that kind of thing. So those points don't add up. Positions gained, 9 on the low side, 11 on the high side. Fastest lap, he's either going to get 0 or 10 there. Driver of the day, he's either going to get 0 or 10 there as well. And while I know the possibility of Max getting driver of the day is very slim because there's Oscar Piastri, there's George Russell, there's Lewis Hamilton, there's Lando Norris, all on the grid there. If he starts like 13th and wins the race in Belgium, like it's going to be really hard to not give him driver of the day. I know it's a fan vote, so we can't really predict all that much, but that would be on the high side there. So if all this low side scenarios play out, he scores 40 points. And if all the high side scenarios play out, he's going to score 78 points, which is massive. On my green flag, yellow flag, red flag episode, I was talking about how he scored less than 30 points in 4 of the last 6 races and only did that one time last year in Singapore. So even 40 points is a pretty good result for Max Verstappen this weekend, and he is an excellent 2x candidate in F1 fantasy around Spa. But instead of just thinking about it out loud, let's just check out some team selection. Alrighty, so here is the T1 team in my F1 fantasy lineup with Lando Norris, George Russell, Logan Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, and Nico Hulkenberg with Mercedes and McLaren as the constructors. I was talking about it in early team selection. I could just let this roll, and I think I would be pretty happy with the results this weekend. However, if I do want to do something different, if I'm thinking about maybe bringing in Red Bull or maybe even bringing in Max, like this is kind of how I would get to it there. So to get Red Bull in my team, I'd have to take out George, and I would take out Mercedes because I still think McLaren's going to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest car around this track this weekend. So that would be pretty easy for me to bring in Red Bull right there. Leave him with 16 million, but if you watch green flag, yellow flag, red flag, you know that I'm a big Kevin Magnussen fan right now. So I'd love to bring him in. Leave me 4.7 in money, which is not too bad because when we're coming out the summer break, say that a Daniel Ricciardo is suddenly in a Red Bull, could be quite easy to just, where'd he go? Here he goes, just kind of pop him in right there, 10.8. Lots of speculation about what they would actually do in the game. Are they just going to flip him to a 10.8 million asset in a Red Bull car? Are they going to kind of almost swap Daniel Ricciardo and Sergio Perez's price if they swap cars? Like, to be determined, but whatever happens, there will be a video on the YouTube channel covering what happens. But that would be kind of the setting myself up for that move because 4.7 should give me enough to kind of go wherever I need to go to get Daniel Ricciardo. But this would be the move. If I'm really feeling good about Red Bull, I could get that in 2 moves there. But if we kind of go back to where we were before with Mercedes and George, it would be a different story. I would probably still need to take George out. I'd also need to take Lando out. And to bring in Max, that would leave me with 17.2 million there. And Kevin Magnussen, that would leave me with 11.3. And there are scenarios where I've thought about maybe activating the wild card, like we're at 3 or 2 transfers here. If Red Bull looks really strong, could double up. Something I've thought about there. And then I'd still have enough money to kind of get out of the Zhou Guanyu business. That would leave me with 10.1 there. And I could easily get, I would get Alexander Albon, who was also on green flag, yellow flag, red flag, and I gave him a green flag. So this would be kind of like a wild card maneuver for me there. But if I'm going to keep Joe and I just want Max and I can keep McLaren. So where'd you go, Joe Guanyu? There we go. So it's really like, what do I want to do here? I'm probably going to be bringing in Kevin Magnussen if I decide to make a move at all. But if I want just Red Bull, I can do that with 2 moves. And if I want just Max Verstappen, I can do that in 2 moves as well and bring in Kevin Magnussen as a result, which he was one of my guys in green flag, yellow flag, red flag. So definitely make sure you go back and watch that episode because I talked about 5 drivers on the grid this week heading into the Belgian Grand Prix. But this is where I'm at for my T1 team with 118.9 in the bank. But I know some of you have a little bit more budget to play with than I do in my T1 team. So here's my T3 team that's got 125.9 million in the bank, which is pretty nice. George, Nico, Pierre, Yuki, and Lando with Mercedes and McLaren, like very similar to a lot of other teams that have this going on here. One thought I have, and I was just prepping for this, and this would do here, just Yuki Tsunoda down to Logan Sargent. That leaves me with exactly 5.4 million in the bank. I could go into qualifying with this. I also have 3 free transfers with this team, so I do need to use 2 to have another one to roll. If I want to just roll it over in the summer break, I don't mind that at all. But if McLaren look really fast and it like kind of all comes together or whatever, and Lando ends up on pole, and I don't really trust Lando on pole anymore. Like he's kind of bottled it off the line enough times now that I'm kind of skeptical of his ability to like kind of convert from pole or getting towards that. Let me know in the comments below if you think that's fair or not. Like, is Lando like a kind of pole to checkered flag kind of driver, or do you think he's kind of been bottling these starts? But anyways, 5.4 million, that leaves me with enough to get Max Verstappen. But I could like lock in Lando and then after the deadline, final fix Max after qualifying if something happened. I could just go into it like this as well, just depending on what I would be thinking about. But yeah, that's kind of like I can get to a Max, George, Mercedes, and McLaren lineup in 2 moves. Like that is very nice, like very fortunate to be in that position that I can do that. If I want to use my 3rd transfer, I would maybe just downgrade Pierre Gasly to Alexander Albon, give myself a little bit more money in the bank. I don't mind that either, actually. But double Williams is a little bit scary. I think Williams are going to do better at Spa because their car is like traditionally quite like slippy around long straights and like fast high-speed corner tracks. So that could work out there. I'm not expecting a great result from either of them, especially if like qualifying in the rain. Although we did just talk about Logan Sargent doing very well when he qualifies in the rain, but is that just circumstances playing in his favor? We'll have to see. But this is maybe kind of an out of the box thinking that I would be going with for Spa with this other team at 125.9 million. Max, Logan, Alex, George, and Nico with Mercedes and McLaren here. Let me know what your budget is. Let me know what your lineup thoughts are, and we can talk about them in the comments, or you can hit me up on X at F1UNFPL. I will be working on Saturday morning. There's no deadline live stream this week, but I will be tweeting. I will be tweeting about my lineup. So hit me up there on Saturday morning with any of your thoughts, questions, concerns, lineup dilemmas as we tick down to that 4 p.m. local time lineup lock deadline for the Belgian Grand Prix. One final time for the lineup lock reminder that I just said: 4 p.m. local time, 3 p.m. UK time, and 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure to get all your lineup dilemmas done ahead of time. You should go watch all the live streams that will be going on there. I know the Fan Champ or channel will be doing stuff with Rob and Adam, so definitely go check out those guys, F1 Fantasy HQ and F1 Fantasy Hub. They do excellent work. So that's where I would go. I'm not sure if Rain is doing a live stream. I'm not sure if Zach is doing a live stream or if Tom is doing a live stream either, but check out YouTube about an hour before the deadline, and then you will see all the F1 fantasy streams that you will need to kind of get some last minute lineup lock dilemmas answered. But I will also be over on the old X Twitter machine there at F1UNFPL to answer any of those concerns. But I hope you have a good free practice on Friday. I hope you enjoy tinkering with your lineups, what you're going to be doing ahead of Spa. Is it going to be a Max weekend? Is it going to be McLaren kind of going back to back with the 1-2? Are Mercedes going to be kind of in and around pole position again. Now that it's a cooler weekend, not as hot, where they traditionally suffer for that kind of temperature rise. I don't think we're going to be counting on Ferrari either. So yeah, I guess I should start doing predictions at the end of these episodes. So I think for this week, my Belgian Grand Prix prediction will be Lando, Max, and George on the podium. That will be my 1, 2, 3 for this week in F1. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support this week. Let me know if you've enjoyed all the episodes, if you've enjoyed like the shorter content that's been getting put out. And once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.